بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome to the Fiqh, the book of Hajj. We discussed earlier one type of Hajj, which is Tamattu'. And now we're moving to the next type, which is very similar to Tamattu'. But the only difference is that you don't break your ihram. You are still in the state of ihram. And this is called qiran. What's the meaning of qiran? Qiran is joinment, when you join. And that's why marriage contract is called in Arabic aqdu qiran, because you are joining two spouses together, male and female. That's why it is called qiran. Here, because you're joining umrah and hajj. But it is similar to tamattu', then why tamattu' is not called qiran also? Tamattu' mainly called tamattu' because you enjoy the termination of ihram. Here you don't. So it is called qiran. So what qiran is basically, it is performing umrah and hajj. Both of them without terminating the ihram. This is what qiran is all about. When you go to the miqat, you declare umrah and hajj, and you remain in the state of ihram once you perform umrah. So let's say today is the 1st of December, which is the 20th of Dhul Qa'dah. We're still about 20 days from the Eid. So if someone went now and he performed umrah while he is performing qiran, what will happen? He will remain in the state of ihram for 20 days, which is difficult. What about people who are already there? Again, the same thing. If they are already there, it is the same thing. Some people may stay for a month or two. Now, this form necessitates also a sacrifice, just like tamattu'. Now, when you perform tamattu', you are performing umrah and hajj, you sacrifice on the day of Eid. Why you sacrifice here? In tamattu' we said probably because you are enjoying the termination of ihram. Here you are not. You are still in the state of ihram, yet you still have to sacrifice. Why is that? Scholars said it is not only about terminating ihram. Here it is about performing umrah during the month of hajj. That's why you sacrifice. Otherwise, you should come for umrah in a separate trip. But since you took advantage of that, then you are liable for a sacrifice. So if you understood tamattu', you should understand qiran. It is very similar, very, very similar. The only difference is ihram. In practice, it's much different because it is more strict. When you are in the state of ihram, you cannot wear perfume, you cannot cover your head, you cannot shave your head, you cannot have any intimate relation, none. While tamattu', you could do anything you want. Then we have the third type, which is what? Ifrad. What's the meaning of ifrad? Fard is single. That's the meaning of fard. Ifrad is only one thing, which is hajj. You perform only hajj. You come to the miqat and you declare your intention of hajj. What does that mean? If someone went from today, which is the 20th of Dhul Qa'dah, you are still about 20 days. You go there, what do? What do? You do ihram because you passed the miqat. Other than that, what do?
You can only do tawaf.
You can do tawaf, yes, but you don't do umrah. Even the tawaf, do you have to do it? No, you don't have actually to do anything. That's why most people do tamattu' unless they are going late. And this is for people who go late because you don't have to do anything. While the one who is performing tamattu' or qiran, he's doing umrah. So he's doing both tawaf and sa'i. But what most people do who are performing ifrad, when they go to Mecca, they do tawaf and they do sa'i. This sa'i is just like Umrah, but actually it is not Umrah. They are doing in advance what they should do on the day of Eid. When it is too much crowded, they don't have to do the sa'i because they did it in advance. But they cannot do the tawaf in advance. That tawaf, which they did, is the sunnah, which is called tawaf al-qudum. Everyone who's going to Mecca is recommended to do tawaf. Just like when you visit the masjid, you are recommended to do 2 rak'ah. Whenever you go to Mecca, you are recommended to do tawaf. But it is not a must. If you choose not to do it, you don't have to. Okay, so this is ifrad. Now, is it clear? Tamattu', qiran and ifrad. What's the difference between ifrad and qiran? Because I may ask you about the similarities and differences. Ifrad and qiran, they are similar from some aspects, and they are different from other aspects. What are they?
You can't remove ihram.
You cannot remove ihram. Is this similarity or difference? It is similarity. What else? You do hajj in both. Okay, this is similarity. Give me the differences.
You don't have to sacrifice.
Very good. In ifrad, do you do sacrifice? No, you don't do sacrifice. While in tamattu and qiran, you are liable for a sacrifice. In ifrad, you don't do sacrifice. In ifrad, you don't do umrah. In tamattu and qiran, what do? You do umrah, you perform umrah. Okay, is ifrad clear? Now, since we discussed the 3 types, the 3 rights of hajj, which one is better? Ifrad, tamattu'. Online, what do you think?
Scholars have according to Imam Hanifa is Quran, according to Imam Shafi is
Tamattu', Iram says ifrad, tamattu'. Well, there are actually 3 opinions. One opinion says ifrad, one opinion says tamattu', and one opinion says qiran. Now, one of the reasons of differences is what the Prophet ﷺ did. What did he do? He did qiran. But still some scholars said no. He did qiran. Even if he did qiran, that does not make it the best, since he commanded the companions to do tamattu'. The majority of scholars say ifrad. Ifrad. That's the opinion of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, Umar and Uthman. They say ifrad. Although if you look at it, which one is easier? Ifrad or tamattu'. Especially if you're going late, ifrad, because you don't have more rights. You don't have to sacrifice. While in tamattu' you have to do umrah and hajj and sacrifice. But that's not the issue again. Those who say it is ifrad, the best is ifrad. They say because in ifrad, you're doing only hajj. So when you do umrah, you have to come again. And they say that's what the Prophet ﷺ did. That's what the companions recommended. Abu Bakr, Umar, and Uthman. That's their evidence. Those who say it is tamattu', they say that's what the Prophet ﷺ commanded the companions to do. He commanded them to do tamattu'. And the Prophet ﷺ will never command them to do something which is less virtuous. And they reply to the question, if you say tamattu' is better, why the Prophet ﷺ did not do it? They give the answer. The Prophet ﷺ was unable. He wanted to. He said, if I had the option, I would have done tamattu'. But he could not. Why he could not? Because he brought the sacrifice with him from Medina. Now once you do that, then you have to do qiran. When you bring the sacrifice with you, you have to do qiran. You cannot do tamattu'. Let's say someone here from Houston intended to go for hajj, and he rented a private jet for him. And he put in that plane 10 cows to sacrifice. Then which type he's going to do? Qiran. Qiran. And that's what the Prophet ﷺ did. He brought with him from Medina 100 camels for sacrifice. And he himself sacrificed 63 camels. The Prophet ﷺ. Can you imagine someone who is sacrificing 100 camels? Even the multi-millionaire people. But the Prophet ﷺ was the most generous human being. He sacrificed 100 camels for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he told the companions to make it tamattu'. Now other scholars say this was particular for the companions. It is not for everyone. Therefore, it has to be either ifrad or qiran. Those who say qiran is the best, they say simply because that's what the Prophet ﷺ did. And he will never do something which is not the best. It has to be the best. So how many opinions do we have? 3. But they all agreed that it is permissible. Because at some point actually you'll find some people telling you you have to do tamattu'. They are implying that ifrad is not allowed. And I still remember one of the grand scholars, he was the mufti in Saudi Arabia. He was not actually the mufti, he was a friend of the mufti. During the time of the previous one, in the late 70s, he came to Hajj and he performed ifrad. And he asked him, the mufti asked him, Sheikh Muhammad ibn Ibrahim rahimahullah, he asked him, why you are doing ifrad? He said, I did it on purpose, because some students of knowledge, they are telling the people that they have to do tamattu'. So I want to give them a lesson. And he did not say anything, because that was good. Sometimes when you find people making something obligatory while it is recommended, you should do it on purpose to teach them that it is not obligatory. What is recommended is recommended. We are discussing what is better. All of them are permissible. Now, since we knew the types of Hajj, let's go back for the details. We discussed a few things about ihram. What is prohibited? Remind me with some things that are prohibited for the muhrim to do. Cutting nails. What's the evidence that cutting nails is prohibited? You start with this one. Based on shaving the hair. You cannot shave the hair, so you cannot cut the nails. Wearing perfume. Having intimate relations, sexual intercourse. The marriage contract, covering the head. Okay, these are prohibited. But how do we start? Practically, how do we start the acts of Hajj? By ihram. How do we start ihram? You go to the miqat. What do? Wash yourself. What if you did not wash? It's okay? You have to.
What if there's no shower?
What if there is no shower? Believe me, you will find lots of showers. But what if you don't have time? Because you will find them all full.
As long as you had washed before, it's okay. You should be not.
As long as you washed before, like 10 days before, or
Some people just like 50 years ago, people were walking for months.
no, you don't make this. They are walking for months, but once they reach the miqat,
So there's no water there.
do you have to wash or no?
It is very strongly recommended.
Very strongly recommended. It is still recommended.
If you had the ghusl,
If you did not have the ghusl, do you wash or no? The majority of scholars said it is recommended. That's the opinion of the majority of scholars. According to the Zahirites, it is wajib. You have to. Which means you are blameworthy if you did not do it. Okay, you started with washing. Then what? Do you wear perfume? We mentioned that. It is recommended also. Then you do what? You put your towels, the ihram. And then what? Make the intention. Verbally. And this is the question. How you start the process of Hajj. How you start the first action. Now you did bathing, which is recommended by most scholars. Which if you did not do, you're still good to go. Then what do? You wear your clothes. Are you muhrim by that? No.
Intention. You have to do the niyyah.
The niyyah. By the niyyah you start the ihram. Now, of course, there are other actions like praying 2 rak'ah. Again, some scholars said it is recommended. Some said no, it is only in Medina because of the Wadi al-Aqiq, the blessed Wadi. But other than that, you don't have to. Unless it is, if it's time for prayer, you pray. If it's not time, you don't pray. You prayed. And then what? When do you start the ihram itself? Is it by bathing? Is it by wearing those 2 towels? Because what if I was wearing those here now? Am I muhrim? How can I be a muhrim here, from here? Before the place of miqat? You can. Of course, you can. But it is not recommended. But how can I? Just by wearing the 2 towels? With the intention. That's how you start ihram. What if someone intended? He went to the miqat, he sat in his car or in the bus or by the plane. They said the plane is passing over the miqat and he was sitting. Okay, and that's it. He made the intention.
He's a mourner.
He's in ihram. What if he did not?
He's still in ihram. He's still in ihram. The minute he does
How?
intention, he's in ihram.
By intention.
Yes.
If you intend to divorce your wife, is she divorced? This is different. If you intend to pray, but you did not pray, are you considered praying?
This is between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you do the intention,
Every action is between you and Allah. Do you have to pronounce it? What's the evidence? What's the evidence you have to?
because Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam did it.
According to Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, it is a must. You have to pronounce. But according to Malik and the Shafi'i, you don't have to. It is by intention. Now, it is of course recommended to say it. And according to Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, it is what? A must. It is wajib. That's when you declare what? The Hajj or Umrah. لبيك اللهم عمرة, لبيك اللهم حجا, لبيك اللهم عمرة في حجة. It depends on what type you're doing. Then what do you do? You go. You are driving. And from Medina to Mecca, it's 4 hours. Driving. What do you do? Keep saying what? لبيك اللهم عمرة, لبيك اللهم عمرة. Talbiyah. What is the talbiyah? What is the talbiyah? No one went for Hajj? لبيك اللهم لبيك, لبيك لا شريك لك, لبيك والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك. Okay. What if someone did not say this?
That's okay. That's hard to
Make sure that you say it as much as you can, because this is a temporary ibadah. That's the only time you have between your ihram until you reach Mecca. So reciting Quran is good, prayer is good, every action of ibadah is good, but this time in particular is time for talbiyah. Now, it is not time for talbiyah now. So that's the only time. Therefore, you should say it as much as you could at that time. It is a temporary ibadah. And this is a maxim that the temporary ibadahs, they are the best to be done in their respective time. During Jumu'ah, you can do whatever you want. But during Salatul Jumu'ah, that's the best action. Before it, recitation of the Quran is good. But Surah Al-Kahf in particular is better because there is an evidence for that. The salam and the salah on the Messenger ﷺ is better on Jumu'ah because it was more emphasized. So it is recommended. And actually the companions, they just almost 10 miles after Medina, their voices are gone. Why? Because of the talbiyah. And nowadays you find many people busy talking and thinking of or sleeping. It's only that time. Like if you go from Jeddah or if you go from At-Taif, from Qarn al-Manazil, it's less than an hour. That's the only time you have for talbiyah. Now, this is the talbiyah, labbaik Allahumma labbaik. What does it mean? Here we come. Labbaika. When you call on someone, he could tell you labbaik. This is correct Arabic. Means, here I am. What do you want? So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ibrahim alayhi salam on behalf of Allah proclaimed Hajj. وَأَذِّن فِي النَّاسِ بِالْحَجِّ. So you are responding to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're responding to the call of Ibrahim when he said labbaik. That's one meaning of talbiyah. Another meaning of talbiyah is commitment. Labba means he's stationed, he's fixed, he's doing this. So you are committed to worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, what if someone does not know? He's a new Muslim. He does not know Arabic. And you tell him, say, labbaik Allahumma labbaik, and he's having humps and saying, he cannot say it. So he said, here I am, O Allah, here I am, O Allah. Can he do that? Is it an act of ibadah or not? You leave it as is? It's like doing this. Can you or can't you?
Yes. We cannot. I know there is coming.
What do you think?
That's okay.
It's okay?
Poor guys want to
Well, can you say now, what's this form of talbiyah? لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك. What if someone says لبيك إله الحق لبيك oh the Lord of the truth بدعة.
You cannot change worship.
Oh لبيك ذا المعارج تعرج الملائكة والروح إليه. So from that you said لبيك ذا المعارج بدعة. So the companions are innovators because that's what they said. Some of them used to say لبيك ذا المعارج, others said لبيك إله الحق. The Prophet ﷺ only said لبيك اللهم لبيك, but he approved of what they did. He did not tell them, but he himself did not change. So is it one form? No, but that's the best form. Many people think that it is only one form and you cannot change it. No, you can. But you should not. It is better, the form that the Prophet ﷺ always mentioned.
So we can't say it in English if you don't listen?
Well, that's the thing. If you can change it, can you say the translation or no?
Was it changed at the time of Prophet or after?
No, when the Prophet ﷺ was present. He used to hear them, but he used to say only the talbiyah.
Tacit approval that this is an act too.
Yeah, that's a tacit approval. That's what I said, that you can.
So then how do you change it after the Prophet's life?
How do you change it after that?
Then it would be a bid'ah, right? If I was like, anything, you would say anything.
Didn't the Prophet ﷺ give his tacit approval for those forms? But isn't that an indication that any other form also is permissible? Or since he gave his tacit approval, that means it became like sunnah, so you are still to adhere to these forms. When do you stop the talbiyah? When you start the tawaf. In Hajj, when do you stop the talbiyah? When you throw the first. Okay. Now after the ihram comes what? Tawaf. You reached Mecca, because again, once you reach Mecca, you are saying talbiyah, labbaik Allahumma labbaik, here I am, you are there. So you stop saying here I am. What do? You start the actions. If you are doing tamattu' or qiran, what do? You have to do umrah. And umrah starts with what? Tawaf. You already did ihram, you reached Makkah, now you do tawaf. How do you do tawaf? Give me specific, what do?
You raise your hand, say Allah Akbar.
You raise your hands or your hand,
Just like Salah.
just like salah.
You raise your hands from the corner, from the corner,
What corner?
the one where the green light is.
Yeah, green light.
What if there is no, that's interesting, green light. Was this green light at the time of the Messenger, sallallahu alayhi wasallam?
They lived there. They knew what was going on. We were so far away.
What if there is no electricity? You tell people, you go and start, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, start from the green light. Where do you start from?
It's from at the corner where the stone.
Black stone, Hajar al-Aswad. Okay, that's where you start from. So, let's say this is the Kaaba. Here is the Kaaba. Let's say this is the building. Here is the black stone from this corner. So how do you start? You are standing here.
You face it, you say Allah.
You face it
and you start.
and you start.
No, you don't actually.
Your left shoulder has to always.
Your left shoulder. Okay, I am standing. This is my left shoulder.
Left shoulder.
When you start, you face it, you say Allah Akbar, and then you start.
How you start?
You say Allah Akbar.
Now I am here. I am standing. What do I do? That's what I'm asking you. What do I do? Touch it. Okay, if you could, which is almost impossible, but I could go. I went there and I touched the black stone. Facing, this is my left.
You go counterclockwise.
Counterclockwise. Like this? Okay, good. So that's what we do. You face, you put your left shoulder to the side direction of the Kaaba and you go counterclockwise from the black stone. Once you reach the black stone again, this is what? One round. How many times? 7 times. Okay? It is recommended to jog. You walk quickly for the first 3 rounds. That's what we call ramal. First 3 rounds. And then the last 4 ones, you walk normally. Also, now the Kaaba has 4 corners. This is the black stone corner. The first corner before it is called the Yemeni corner, Rukn al-Yamani. It is recommended to touch it because the Prophet ﷺ said it wipes out sins. You touch it.
Walking on it. People get there and start walking.
What if someone, that's a good question. Now you see the pillars of the Kaaba, the bricks. Someone walking on them, that does not count. If you walk on them, actually you are, because this is of the building of the Kaaba. You are not walking outside. You have to be outside the perimeter of the Kaaba. If you are inside, then that does not count. So you have to be outside. You touch the Yemeni corner. If you could not, do you point to it? No. What about the black stone? You point. If you could kiss it, that's the best. You kiss the black stone. If you could not, you touch it. If you could not, what do? You just point to it. How you point to it? Let's say here's the black stone. Do I face it like that? Do I raise my 2 hands? Just, it is the right hand. Okay? Here is the picture of the Kaaba. As you see, here is the black stone. You start from anywhere parallel to the black stone. And the further you go, the bigger that area where you could start from is. But previously, if you look here, they used to have this line, which made lots of problems because people think this is the only area where they could start from, which is incorrect. And some people actually used to stand here. They wait and they say dua, and some of them actually they pray here. So you have this area all crowded, and here it's empty. No one is passing. Everyone is here. You just do the istilam, you touch it or you kiss it, and then you move. So now this is how you see it. This is how they made it. They finally changed it. If you look at that, here is the station of Ibrahim. Now here, what do we have? This semicircle shape. What is this? Is this part of the Kaaba? Yes. This is of the foundation. This is called Hijr Ismail or Al-Hatim. And the Kaaba, that's how it was originally on the foundations of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Which means this is considered inside the Kaaba. So if someone says, I want to pray inside the Kaaba, go there. That's considered inside the Kaaba. Which means you cannot, if you are starting from here and you're going this way, you cannot go this way, take a shortcut. Can you? You cannot. You have to go from outside. Yeah. So you go here, this way, and that's what? One round. And then you go second round. And then third round until you finish how many? 7. After the 7, what do you do? It is recommended to go behind the station of Ibrahim, number 7 on the chart, and you pray. Of course, again, during Hajj, it's almost impossible, very difficult. Everyone is there. So what do? You can pray anywhere you want. And then what do? Now you finished the tawaf. As I told you, this tawaf is pillar if you are doing tamattu' or qiran. This is tawaf part of the umrah. You have to do tawaf and sa'i. If you are doing ifrad, this tawaf is what? Is only sunnah. You don't have to do it, but you should because it is recommended. You're going there, so you do it. After you do the tawaf, what do? Yeah, drinking from Zamzam, this is recommended. Now, we're talking about the issues that there is difference of opinions, whether it is must or recommended or pillar. What do we do after that? We have the sa'i. After the 7 rounds, after the prayer, we have what? Sa'i. What's the meaning of sa'i? Sa'i, to walk, to struggle, to hurry up, between Safa and Marwa. Let's go back. Here is the Kaaba. Okay? Where is the part of Sa'i?
It's opposite of
Opposite of what? Of black stone. Very good. It is this way. If this is the Kaaba here, the Safa and Marwa is this way. We have 2 places, Safa and Marwa, and they used to be 2 mountains, and there is a valley. So where do you go? From the black stone.
you have to keep walking.
You keep walking until you go outside Mecca? You keep walking where? Actually, if you walk this way, here is the black stone, and you go this way, you're going to As-Safa. As-Safa is here, and Al-Marwa is there. Here is As-Safa, you're going, and there are enough signs, but you need to know. Here is As-Safa, and Al-Marwa is there. Almost half mile, 500 yards between them. You do the sa'i. What's the ruling on that sa'i? In Hajj, let's forget about Umrah. Now, during Hajj, what's the ruling of that sa'i? Is it a pillar? What's the evidence? What's the evidence that it is a pillar? You are going for Hajj. Why do you have to do sa'i? I know, tawaf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ثُمَّ أَفِيضُوا مِنْ حَيْثُ أَفَاضَ النَّاسِ. That's why it's called tawaf al-ifada. But what about sa'i? Prophet ﷺ did it. Prophet ﷺ also sacrificed 100 camels. Does that make sacrificing 100 camels pillar or must? He mentioned, everything he mentions becomes mandatory? Yeah, this is the way. That's what we should do. What's the ruling on sa'i? Again. What is the ruling on sa'i? Do you have to do it or no? See? This is basic. Why it is a pillar? If you say it is a pillar. Why? It is a sunnah?
No, it's a sunnah.
So is it a pillar or sunnah? According to the majority of scholars, it is a must. It is wajib. You cannot leave it. You have to do it. Because of the ayah. إن الصفا والمروة من شعائر الله فمن حج البيت أو اعتمر فلا جناح عليه أن يطوف بهما. Indeed, Safa and Marwa are of the symbols of Allah. So it is not harm, it is not a sin on him who wanted to perform sa'i. But the ayah says it is not sin. What does that mean?
Commandment indirectly.
It's recommended, right? When it says it is not a sin to do it, what does that mean? It is okay, which means, does it mean it is a must? No. Yes. Yeah. The apparent meaning of the ayah that it is recommended. From the ayah itself, it doesn't indicate it is a must. But the reason of revelation, hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha, all this confirms that it is mandatory. The reason of revelation that before Islam, in the pre-Islamic era, there were idols. So the kuffar were going not for the sake of Allah, but rather they were going for the idols. So when Islam came and the idols were removed, Muslims were embarrassed. They were not comfortable doing this because it used to be, they thought it is a practice of Jahiliyyah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the ayah that it is not a practice of Jahiliyyah. And there is no sin on him who performs it. Now, when Urwa radiallahu anhu asked Aisha, he asked his aunt about this ayah, it means recommended. She said no. If it's recommended, Allah would say, there is no sin on him who does not perform it. But Allah mentions it is not a sin on him who does it to deny and eliminate any misconception that the Muslims had from the pre-Islamic era. And she told him it is a must. So that's the ruling on sa'i. According to Abu Hanif rahimahullah, it is what? It is a sunnah but not mandatory. What do we do basically? As I said, we have Safa and Marwa. What do you do? You start from Safa, what do you do? You go between As-Safa and Al-Marwa. You reach As-Safa, while you're going there, you say the dua, إِنَّ الصَّفَا وَالْمَرْوَةَ مِنْ شَعَائِرِ اللَّهِ فَمَنْ حَجَّ الْبَيْتَ وَاعْتَمَرَ. You say the dua, there are many ad'iyah that are recommended. And then what do? You go down. Going to where? Marwa. You reached Al-Marwa. What do? Same thing as you did, and then you go back. That's considered what? One or two?
Going back to Safa is 2.
Yeah, one is there,
2. From Safa to Marwa, 1. From Marwa to Safa, 2. Otherwise, you will do 14. Be careful, because some people think that you have to do 14. It is 7 only. So you start from a Safa, and where do you end? Marwa. What if you went and you thought you are in a Safa and you walked all the distance and then you were told this is a Safa. You reached a Safa now. So where did you start from? Marwa. And you ended at a Safa. Does that count? If you did one more, Safa to Marwa, do you say this is the first one and the one that I did before is the second one? No, it doesn't count. It doesn't count. You made a mistake. You have to start from As-Safa and you end at Al-Marwa. If you started from Al-Marwa or you ended at As-Safa, then you messed up. You have to make sure what you're doing.
It's fine doing it.
No, you don't do all over again, but you continue one. You add one. So you begin from As-Safa. You say the dua, the ayah. You go down walking. Now, while you are going down, remember, previously there was a valley. Batn Muhassir. That's the meaning of the name of it. Muhassir. Where Hajar, the wife of Ibrahim, peace be upon him, she was running, looking for water for her son, Ismail. So we are doing this, and this is for men, not for women. When you reach that valley, you run. And now it is marked. It is marked with green column, and on the top also there is a green light. And then you continue walking until you reach Al-Marwa, and then you come back. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And this is As-Safa and Al-Marwa. As-Safa is this way and Al-Marwa is that way. The Kaaba, from that picture, where is the Kaaba? It is here. If you're looking at the picture, it is this way. Al-Kaaba is this way. Not that way. That way is the shops and the open. Okay, so people going to As-Safa and they are coming back from Al-Marwa. And as you see, it is long. What are the conditions of sa'i compared to conditions of tawaf? In tawaf, can you perform tawaf without wudu? Why not? Is it analogy or it is a hadith? The Prophet ﷺ said, "Inna at-tawaf bil-bayti salah." Tawaf, circumambulating the Kaaba, is prayer, except that you're allowed to speak, which means everything else is what? Should be like prayer. And of these conditions is what? Wudu. Some scholars said, no, it is not a condition. You only have to have purification. They all agreed that impure person, one who has janaba or menstruation, they cannot do tawaf. What about sa'i? Is it the same condition? Do you have to have wudu? No. What about purification? No? Menstruating woman, can she perform sa'i? Says who?
That's from the hadith.
What hadith?
When she had to do sa'i and Prophet said you can do everything but the tawaf. When she was at Hajj.
That's implied. افعلي ما يفعل الحاج غير أن لا تطوفي بالبيت. Do whatever the Hajj is doing, except that you don't do the tawaf. But if you don't do the tawaf, consequently you cannot do sa'i. Can you do sa'i and then later do the tawaf? Of the conditions of tawaf, that of sa'i, that tawaf has to precede it. Tawaf should be before it. Now you're going for Umrah. Can you do sa'i and then you do tawaf? No. On Hajj. Can you? Of course you cannot. But for the mufrid only, because he wants to do sa'i in advance, he does tawaf. So sa'i comes after tawaf. Although this sa'i is from the day of Eid, from the day of Hajj. But in principle, you cannot do sa'i before tawaf. And that's why many scholars said the same thing. Actually, that's the opinion of the majority, that purification is condition for sa'i. But not the major one. An opinion says you have to have purification, but not wudu. It is not a condition. Another opinion says you have to have even wudu. And another opinion says you don't have to have purification. But the opinion of the majority that you should have purification. Okay. Any questions? We'll stop here inshallah. Any questions about tawaf and sa'i?